Welcome back to the Imaginary Gallery. It's TJ, your host. We're discussing change and the abusive person, still referencing Lundy Bancroft's book, Why Does He Do That? Inside the Minds of Angry and Controlling Men. In the previous video, we'd covered a list of questions, yes or no, to determine if your abusive partner is actually changing. The next section in Mr. Bancroft's book covers clear signs of an abusive person who is not changing. He begins with some statements that your partner may make, which is important to listen for these types of statements, or behaviors, which will clearly indicate that this creature is making zero progress. For example, he says that he can change, but only if you change too. He says he can change only if you help him do so. You're going to have to give him emotional support, forgiveness, and reassurance. And you're going to have to spend a lot of your time with him. This is a trick he's using because he knows if he's in this program to change, he's in hot water, and he's afraid you might stray. So this is a tactic to get you to continue to be around him, because he knows you're probably going to say, look, I want to take a break from you while you fix yourself. He doesn't want to hear that. Or he criticizes you for not recognizing just how much he has changed. Or he'll criticize you for not trusting that his change is going to last. Or criticizes you for considering him capable of behaving abusively even though he in fact has done so previously or has threatened to. As if you should know that he would just never do anything like that, even though he already has. He reminds you about the terrible things he would have done in the past, but's not doing anymore, which actually equates to some kind of a threat, a subtle threat. He tells you that you're taking way too long to make up your mind, and he just can't wait forever. And it's a way to pressure you not to take the time you need to collect yourself and to assess how much he's really willing to change. And the last example is he says things like, I'm changing, and you just don't feel it. Bancroft tells you to be straight with yourself. To make good decisions and use good judgment about the prospects for change in your abusive partner, you need to be honest with yourself. Because you love this creature, or you have children with it, or leaving would be difficult for other types of reasons, which it usually is, because they've hooked you in, you may be sorely tempted to get overly hopeful if it does some kind of small concession, if it starts doing something real sweet regularly. If it doesn't budge for 5 years or 20 years, then finally moves an inch, your exhaustion can make you think, hey, a whole inch! That's progress! You may wish to overlook all the glaring signs indicating that its basic attitudes and strategies remain intact. Beware of its deception and your own self-deception. Bancroft says he's heard such heart-wrenching sadness in the voices of many abused ladies who've said, I wish I could somehow recover all those years I wasted waiting around for him to deal with his issues. Save yourself that sadness if you can by insisting on nothing less than complete respect. Then Bancroft discusses the abusive person in couples therapy. He says that attempting to address abuse through couples therapy is like wrenching a nut in the wrong way. It just gets even harder to undo than it was before. Couples therapy is created and designed to tackle issues that are mutual. It can be effective for overcoming barriers to communication, for untangling childhood traumas that each partner brings to the relationship, or for building intimacy. You can't accomplish any of these goals in the context of abuse. There can be no positive communication when one person doesn't respect the other and strives to avoid any form of equality. You can't take the leaps of vulnerability involved in working through early emotional injuries while you're feeling emotionally unsafe, because you are emotionally unsafe. If you succeed in achieving greater intimacy with your abusive partner, you'll soon get hurt even worse than you ever were before, because greater closeness means greater vulnerability for you. Couples counseling sends both the abusive person and the abused partner the wrong message. The abusive person learns the partner is pushing the buttons and touching it off, and that she needs to adjust her behavior to avoid getting him so upset. This is what he's been claiming all along. Change in abusive people comes only from the reverse process, from completely stepping out of the notion that the partner plays any role in causing its abuse of his or her. An abusive person also has to stop focusing on his feelings and his partner's behavior and look instead at her feelings and his behavior. Couples counseling allows him to stay stuck in the former. In fact, some therapists believe that feelings are all that matter, and reality is more or less irrelevant. In this context, the therapist may turn to you and say, "But he feels abused by you too." Unfortunately, the more an abusive person is convinced that his grievances are more or less equal to yours, the less the chance it'll ever have to overcome its sickening attitudes. The message from couples counseling is, you can make your abusive partner behave better towards you by changing how you behave towards him. Such a message is frankly fraud. Abuse is not caused by bad relationship dynamics. You can't manage your partner's abusiveness by changing your behavior. But he wants you to think you can with his lovely gaslighting techniques. He tries to tell you that if you stop doing those things that make me upset, just start taking better care of my needs, or if you stop doing the things that upset me, I will become a non-abusive partner, but it never happens. And even if it did work, even if you could stop its abusive behavior by catering to its every whim, is that a healthy way for you to live? No. If the way you behave in the relationship is a response to the threat of abuse, are you a voluntary participant? If you have issues you'd like to work on with a couples counselor, wait until your partner's been completely abuse-free for 2 years. Then you might be able to work on some of the problems that are truly mutual.
Hi, it's me, the Narcopath. I'm here giving you a few more confessions. I know it probably baffled you shortly after I dumped you.
When all your friends seem to turn on you, they seem to ignore you, they didn't want anything to do with you, despite all the stories you told them. Well, honey, you have no idea how much of an influence I have on other people. You see, there was a running joke going that you were stupid, and so a lot of the stuff I knew and talked about, I kept quiet when you were around. But I can assure you, when you weren't around, I had every one of your so-called friends wrapped around my finger, and when you'd catch me doing things with the paper boy or the pizza boy, I had a way of turning that stuff around. When you acted all upset at me, I switched gears and pretended like I was upset at you. I would basically tell them whatever I had done to you, you had done it to me. Especially after the dumping, we know between us the reason I dumped you was because you were catching on. You were finding out too much and asking too many questions, for God's sake. I had to act quickly. Remember, I'm the Narcopath. I cannot be left. I do the leaving. I had to step it up in gear, and all that stuff you'd cry to them and tell them I did. I'd already told them beforehand you did it to me, so it made you look even more unstable. Because I told them I thought you were unstable, that you were losing your mind and going paranoid, and you were reversing things. And I showed them a textbook that I thankfully found in TJ's home that points out how mentally ill people will do such things. And they all bought it. Notice how their faces were just blank when you ran to them face to face to tell them how terrible I was to you. Didn't get you very far, did it? That'll teach you to mess with the Narcopath. You shouldn't have been asking questions. You shouldn't have been spying on me. You shouldn't have been looking through my phone. How dare you that time that I had to use the restroom? It was an emergency, and oh, you got what you deserve because you ain't got me. It's your loss.
Once I had your whole family turned against you, my work there was done. Plus the fact you were spying on me, so...
Good riddance. I left your family in shambles. No one ever would dare suspect it was me. But you have yourself to thank for that. You shouldn't have been stupid enough to go out with me in the first place. So honey, you got what you deserved.
Oh yeah, when I wronged you, which I know I did several times, you love to tell people just what I did to you.
And I know what I did was technically bad, which makes me a bad gal. Your insults, as I called them, I know were simply calling me the names that I really was. Other people, they didn't need to know the truth. So I just told them about how you called me names all the time. And even though you caught me in 20 lies, and you named all 20 of them, and called me a liar, I went to them and said, "Oh, he called me a liar. I've never lied to him." And then when you found out I snuck around with your brother behind your back, you called me a cheater, which I was, but I told everyone else I'd never cheated on anyone, and how dare he call me a cheater. And they all believed that you were abusive. So I won.